Well, we're back with session 8 with River. This is kind of a repeat session for a lot of things, but we do introduce something new at the end. That's pretty much how a lot of sessions go. You repeat known behaviors and continue working on developing those behaviors, and then you add something new intermittently in the session. She's very curious about the camera, and I was telling her to please not knock down the camera. I'm using a stationary, just my iPhone at this point, with a very, just kind of setting it up there so it easily is knocked down. But what we're doing is I'm asking her to come and touch the target. I'm trying to get her to engage with me. She's a lot more interested in me this session. The last session she was more interested in doing her own thing. This session I felt like she was really coming back to me and starting to perk up a little bit.
Good job.
We're still dealing with some post-weaning trauma emotional state here. I didn't really recognize it at the time, but as I've mentioned in a previous video, I believe she was going through some sort of low spot. She had a rough weaning, didn't know how to eat hard food at all. She only knew how to eat grass and hay. So she is struggling to learn to eat, which is why her condition is not quite what I want it to be. And she was just kind of abruptly taken from her herd and her mom. So as much as I'm doing my best to really make her feel comfortable, it's just going to take some time for her to adjust to a different lifestyle and get to really comfortable with the new horses and everything. So she is targeting and doing well. This is maybe the second time, perhaps the first time I'm actually using a brush. I've used a curry comb prior to this, mostly my hands. So it's really good that she doesn't seem to care what tool I use for grooming. She's very sleepy. All my horses stay outside all day and night, and I only bring them into the barn for when I'm there for training. So now that I've gotten to know her better, she really likes to come inside and just sleep. So at this point, I think she was just tired from being out all day and just enjoying the quiet of being in the barn.
Where are you going? Don't touch the camera. Come on.
Again, she's checking out the camera. She's very curious. I learned that very quick, that she is a naturally very bold and approaches things that she's interested in.
No? Want to touch it?
I take the target and I gently touch her on the head because I'm just playing with her, wanting to get her attention. She targets again and I go and brush her. She really enjoys being groomed and taken care of and scratched on, so she finds the grooming to be a reward. So here we take a brief break. I just went over to the tack room to I grabbed my other clicker because the other one is tied on to the target and I'm not using the target anymore. So here's where we introduce something new. I had been previously desensitizing her to having her legs handled, but I had not started the process of picking up her feet. But here we go ahead and we start working on that more seriously, since her hooves were in bad need of being trimmed. And up until this point, and for a couple more sessions, I'm unable to pick her feet out or anything or to take care of them. So it's definitely a necessity that she learn to have her feet handled. Because I want her to be completely comfortable when having her legs handled, I allow her to choose if she wants to walk off. I don't want her to feel trapped. I feel a lot of times that horses that have a hard time having their feet handled will either pull away or move around a lot or kick out. It's because they feel unbalanced or trapped. If you think about it, being prey animals, it would be very unnatural and probably a little bit scary to them to have one of their legs caught, which is essentially what they're feeling when their leg is in your hand. They are unable to use that fourth leg. So she's much calmer now. I'm just running my hands down her legs, and I click and reinforce with with the curry comb, which is like scratches. Anytime she lets me, and she stands calmly for me, running my hands down her legs.
Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl.
She's a lot more comfortable with having her legs handled, even in just a few minutes of this work. And of course I'm a klutz, so I drop everything, which is great for desensitizing.
Oh, good.
There she actually picked up her hoof, which caught me off guard, but since that is my end goal, even though wasn't particularly asking for it just then, I click and reward for that.
You can stay right there.
I just moved the camera so you guys could see her a little bit better. So since I didn't want to catch her off guard, I waited for her to finish scratching herself and start again. I'm sorry for the rear end shot, but we're in an interesting position. So I go back and continue what we were doing before. Just running my hands down her legs. And this is the beginning of teaching any horse or retraining any horse to have their legs handled and their feet handled without stress. I prefer to do it at liberty, just meaning that they're unrestrained and they have the option of walking off. And if in the beginning you're only able to get your hand just a little bit down their leg and while they're under threshold, that's all you need. And you just slowly work your way up to being able to run your hand all the way down their leg, and then eventually have them pick up their foot. And even for a split second, even a weight shift is perfect. And then eventually they'll pick up their hooves, and then you'll extend the duration. So you will ask for, at first it'll just be a second, eventually it'll be even up to a couple minutes. And when you're training for work with the farrier, you'll want definitely an upwards of quite a few minutes of them standing stable on 3 legs. But again, with a lot of horses, this is a insecurity as well as a balance issue. I think picking up hooves, picking up feet, we take for granted when instinctually it makes perfect sense that they wouldn't want to have their feet handled. So I'd like to point out that I'm pretty close down by her feet, meaning I'm leaning or kneeling down, and I'm in a somewhat compromised position. River is incredibly calm. She's completely at ease with me working with her. So I'm fairly comfortable being in that position. I don't feel like she is threatened at all or stressed, which is exactly what this type of work involves, is working with a horse that's under threshold and is comfortable. But if you're ever in a position where you're working with a horse that is stressed, obviously you would not want to be in that position. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't hesitate to ask questions or leave comments below.